So next up, can Larry Elder beat Governor Newsom in California? Can Larry Elder, who filed to run for governor in California, replace Governor Gavin Newsom? So in the Wall Street Journal, it says the conservative radio host, which is Larry Elder, leads all of the other candidates, but a majority will have to reject the incumbent first. Why shouldn't a conservative Republican like Larry Elder be leading the race to recall Governor Gavin Newsom? Mr. Elder is an attorney, a best-selling author, documentary filmmaker, and successful talk radio host who was born and raised in Los Angeles. True, he's an amateur when it comes to electoral politics, but look at what the professionals like Mr. Newsom, a liberal Democrat, have done to the most populous state in our country. Crime in California has climbed in every city. Left-wing district attorneys compete to determine who can prosecute the least amount of bad people. And the state's homelessness rate is the third highest in the country, only after Hawaii and New York. And it's rising, which might have something to do with the heavy-handed zoning restrictions and the environmental regulations that make it impossible to have affordable housing in California. Californians pay energy bills that are significantly higher than the national average and well above what customers pay in neighboring states like Oregon. Yet millions of residents experienced rolling blackouts in 2019, despite all the money they pay for their electric bills, when a state utility purposefully cut off the power to avoid wildfires caused by outdated electric lines. And that's what life has been like in the progressive Eden before the pandemic. Mr. Elder, who's running for governor, told me in an interview this week, this is Wall Street Journal, that the state's over-the-top COVID response and the governor's aristocratic personal behavior probably did more than anything else to put his job in jeopardy. In a CNN interview last year, Mr. Newsom implied that his children who attend private school, listen to this podcast, listeners. In a CNN interview last year, Mr. Newsom implied that his children who attend private school were still learning remotely. In reality, his children had actually returned to in-person instruction months earlier, while the public schools remain closed in deference to the state's powerful teacher unions. So Newsom doesn't live the way the rest of us live. He issues decrees, but he doesn't live by those decrees. So the article goes on, nor has Mr. Newsom been able to live down his infamous private dinner at a fancy French restaurant in defiance of his own COVID restrictions. Mr. Elder said people are angry that the state was shut down in such a severe way during the pandemic, while this man was sitting in a restaurant with lobbyists and healthcare professionals, violating the very mandates they wrote. It wasn't the only example of the rules not applying to the governor, said Mr. Elder. Mr. Newsom's own winery in Napa Valley remained open last year, while he ordered other wineries and businesses across the state to close their indoor operations. So Newsom has a winery. By the way, this is new information, podcast listeners. Did you know that Gavin Newsom owns a winery? I didn't know he owned a winery. How is it that you are a man of the people and a progressive, and you believe in a flattening economy and socialism, and you own a winery? How is it that you're a progressive and your kids go to private school and they were in school while your children were home because they couldn't go to school because Newsom closed the schools? How is it that Newsom gets to go out to eat and you didn't go out to eat all through 2020, at least for the first 6 months of it, at least? And so I didn't even know Newsom owned a winery. I mean, what kind of regular person that you know owns a winery? Do you know anyone that owns a winery? I mean, I do know one person, but this is Maryland, right? And our wines aren't that great. So you can like start a winery. I mean, in Maryland, you can have like 5 vines and consider it a winery. But we're talking about California style winery, right? We're talking about real wine that's really good wine where the acreage costs a fortune. I mean, I don't know what that acreage is worth in Napa Valley, but it has to be, millions of dollars an acre. At least. You would think, because the wine, the grapes and the vines are very mature. And so Newsom, the governor, owns a winery. Sorry, I don't mean to like focus on this so much, but I've never known that before. Californians, why? Why would you vote for a guy in office that owns a winery? I mean, and think that he's going to be just like you. He's going to understand your problems. So Larry Elder, this talk show host, who also, by the way, happens to be black, is really doing well in the polls. Now, the polls show that he's about 2 to 3 points behind Governor Gavin Newsom. So he is behind, but he's within 2 points or 3 points. And he's a Republican, Larry Elder, in a state that is overwhelmingly not just Democrat, but like far left, progressive. At least that's what we're told. Maybe people are finally waking up. Maybe people are finally waking up. I can only hope that is at least a possibility, that, people are going to look at Larry Elder and say, okay, I don't agree with his abortion stance. I don't agree with him on a lot of business issues. I don't agree with him on his views of climate change. But you know what? The state's falling apart anyway, despite all of the bills that Gavin Newsom passes, and the state is burning and things aren't getting better. And there's still massive water shortages. We don't have rain. There aren't solutions. Try electing a Republican. I mean, can it be any worse? Remember what Trump said? It's like, what do you have to lose? I mean, obviously unfortunately, that statement now, if you use that in a state like California, they're going to, oh no, that's too Trumpian. We can elect you because you said, what do you have to lose? But at some point, Republicans should start using that terms like, you have nothing to lose, everybody, because California is a terrible place right now. Imagine if you were living 100 miles from the forest fires in California. That's far away, right? My understanding is the smoke and the soot, you still smell it all the time. I mean, your quality of life is not good. It's not good at all. And it's not going to get any better, as far as I'm concerned, as long as the progressives are in charge, because they're not passing bills based on common sense. They're passing bills based on pure and utter ideology, without question.